Hi guys, welcome to Pure Core episode 8. 8 episodes in 8 days. This was not my intention originally from the outset standpoint, but I've got a lot of time on my hands and plenty to say, and I like talking rubbish, so here we are. Just quickly, I guess, is the intro. This pace will not continue, okay? I'm not under no illusions that I will be recording one of these every day. Life will not permit me such freedom, I guess you could say. So let's make the most of this while we can, and I'll continue to bang. Who knows? Maybe we'll speed up the pace. Maybe we'll actually start doing two a day, and I'll start banking them and releasing them as and when they're ready to go. I have most of these planned out, and every day new concepts, new ideas appear to me through introspection and deep thought. So there really is no limit to how many things we can cover here. But my reason for being here is to cover things which I think are of great importance. Sorry, to as as much as the populace as possible. I think that's the best way I would describe it. Um, so yeah, 8 episodes in 8 days may continue, may not continue. One other note: I will be putting these on Spotify. Also, I realized in listening back to a couple of them because I haven't really taken all of them in myself. That the format's probably more akin to Spotify than it is actually YouTube. I think the length at which I'm speaking and also some of the things that we're covering in the detail that we're covering them kind of needs to be on that platform as well. So we're going to take it over there. And I think also, it's not important for you to look at me when you're listening to what I'm talking about actually in a lot of these instances. And some of you might not actually like looking at me as well, which is perfectly fine. I won't take any offense to that. So Spotify they'll be available on Spotify also. I'll start uploading them there as well once I figure out the detail of that. I do have time on my hands, as I said, but haven't had time today to cover that. Anyway, I have exactly 55 minutes because I have to train at 5 and it is currently 4:05 on Tuesday, the 13th of August. So let's not waste any more time. I don't know how long we're into this already. Let's get down to why we're here. As you can see from the title, the topic of today is manners and altruism. Originally, we were just going to go with manners, but I felt that altruism was a big part of the purpose of manners, the reason for manners, why even have manners, what are manners, which is where we're going to start, right? Which is what we always do. We establish the framework for the conversation at the top, and then we dive deep down into the heart of the matter and start to pull out where we're going wrong, essentially. And that's not just you guys, that's me also as well. And I want to be very clear in that. I never want to speak from a position of superiority. We are learning, we are growing together. That's what we're doing here. I am not superior, I'm not better than. And the reality is, through doing these conversations, I'm gaining more than maybe you guys even are. So it's keeping me on track with what I need to do, and it's allowing me to share it with you guys, and hopefully some of it resonates. If not, great. Like I said, this is not about the numbers, the metrics. We're here to study, essentially. Okay, so what are manners? All right, and it's most neatly defined as this. Again, I use Google a lot. I'm not going to pretend that these are all coming from my brain, but a lot of the sentences you hear me read throughout the conversation are direct quotes that I've written down. And if you ever want any of those, please feel free to hit me up. Happy to share any and all details. As I said, a lot of this was written down to be delivered in book form, but this feels more comfortable for me, right? Okay, so what are manners? Manners are a person's outward bearing or way of behaving. Sorry, let's start that again. Manners are a person's outward bearing or way of behaving towards others. Okay, again, very concise, very short, and let's unpack that in a bit more detail. So, manners, I guess, are the way in which you treat people, the way in which you speak to people, your actions towards people, your care for people's personal space, personal feeling, and there's a lot of empathy tied up in that. Manners are essentially the surface level of how you show your intention and care towards someone, generally a stranger that you don't know, right? You use your manners to let someone know what kind of energy you're trying to meet them with. So again, if you have good manners, great. I'm sure that you'll find that you probably have a very easy way of kind of floating through life. You probably don't meet a lot of obstacles because manners have a special feature of being like an unlocking. They unlock things. Your manners can unlock great things for you, as we're going to discuss today. Um, And I think that's kind of the reason I got onto this topic. I'll start with the anecdote actually. So the reason I pushed this conversation out today is I took a trip to central London. Um, yesterday morning I went to central London. I had to return some stuff. I won't say where from. And well, I had to go to two places. Okay, I will tell you where they're from so that you can understand a bit better. I went to Uniqlo, okay, and I went to Sports Direct. I had to return some stuff from Uniqlo and I had to buy some things from Sports Direct. As you know, I'm into my sport, okay? Um, and when I went to Uniqlo, I was in a queue for the returns, and I noticed that the woman who was doing the returns, considering like it's 10 a.m., I don't know what she's got going on, but she didn't look very happy, and that didn't fill me with much happiness. I was very aware of her displeasure at maybe the hour she's working, maybe the day she's anticipating having. It's very hot, obviously, yesterday as well. So there's many things which may have gone into her feeling, her temperament that morning. And obviously, being who I am, I've decided in the queue, I think there's two or three people in front of me. Okay, I'm going to do my best to try and, add some levity to the day, uplift her, try and be, that good person, that good spirit that, people can engage with and feel a bit better once they've met. Woman in front of me, I wasn't really paying much attention, but when she got to the counter, I noticed there was a particularly frosty nature for the woman in front of me. And then simultaneously, as that's happening, the woman behind me is on the phone arguing with someone else. She's arguing about the fact that, and I probably shouldn't divulge during this conversation, but she is indeed a stranger, and I'll probably never see or hear from this person, of course. But she's moaning about the fact that she's in this returns queue for someone else. So someone, maybe it's a daughter, a son, a husband, or someone has given her stuff to return at Uniqlo. She's not happy about that. She's moaning, she's complaining. So I'm trapped between the frosty exchange between the cashier and the woman in front of me, and then the woman behind me who's also on the phone arguing. And again, my outward empatheticness is being, it's being, I wouldn't say triggered, because I'm very good at keeping very cool in these scenarios and delivering what I feel is best, regardless of what the external stimuli are presenting to me. But at the same time, I'm very aware of the general tenseness of everyone around me, and it's very juxtaposed to how I feel. I'm very cool, very calm. It's a Monday morning. I've as I said to you guys yesterday, right? I'd already kind of gotten up very early and done loads already, so I'm almost like halfway through my day at 10 a.m. So I'm not feeling maybe the pressure that other people are feeling. It's a nice feeling, and again, I don't take it for granted. So there's tension in the air. We're in Uniqlo. Okay, I'm setting the scene for you guys. Hopefully you can feel what I'm saying. Um, the woman in front of me finishes, and I realize as I approach the desk that this woman's day, the cashier's day, is, well, beyond saving for me at this point. Okay, as another stranger who is coming behind the stranger who was in front of me, who didn't meet her with any positivity, any altruism, any real manners. Okay, manners is what we're discussing here, right? She is not going to be very receptive to my jovial nature. But nonetheless, I proceed in my usual upbeat manner. Hello, smile. How are you doing? Okay, most cashiers don't get asked how they're doing. I present that to her. She's not really interested in this conversation. And again, that's fair. At that point, I decide to rescind it a little bit because I don't want her to feel like I may be taking the mick, so to speak. So I dial it back a touch. Um, she asked me, I think, okay, she asked me why I was returning the stuff. I said, I figured she wanted like a proper answer, but I said, well, because I want the money back. And she was not happy about that answer. She said, well, I need a proper reason. And at that point, I realized, okay, this is really not a good time for her. I can't do much to make her day better, and I don't feel good about that. But the least I can do is to close this interaction with positivity. So I gave her a proper reason. I said the items were too small. She sorted the return for me. I signed the little receipt, piece of paper. You don't have to tap your card these days. The money just goes back. It's almost like an online payment, which is new to me. And I said, I hope you have a good day. And I left the store. And I just felt really bad for her. It's the start of the day. Like I said, it's very hot. She's not happy. And it just didn't feel good at all. Um, and then I thought about it and I realized that it's not her fault that she's not able to deliver. I'm sure she's a very nice person, probably is more upbeat, probably can deliver better customer service than that. And I wasn't judging her on that at all. But I figured that, generally in her job, if that was just one day where that woman's in front of me and she's giving her a hard time, and I'm pretty sure the woman behind me wasn't probably much better, right? She probably has to come into work with this kind of exterior quite regularly because people aren't using their manners with her. Okay, people aren't being altruistic about her situation. If you're in Uniqlo at Monday at 10 a.m., you're probably not, working a job which requires you to be in an office or at a desk somewhere, or you have the freedom to kind of roam around, or maybe you're on holiday. Who knows? But your day is your own if you're at Uniqlo at 10 a.m. doing whatever you need to do on a Monday morning. Sorry. So there's that level of understanding and I guess empathy for the people who are working on a particular hot day on a store, and this was like the second or third floor as well, so it weren't cool up there at all by any means. Um, and I just didn't like the fact that there was no one else in the immediate vicinity that I felt was trying to do what I wanted to do for this person, and that just wasn't a very nice feeling. And then it made me think more about manners, and I went into Uniqlo, essentially, Sports Direct, sorry, and I won't tell you that whole story, but I had a very similar experience in there as well. The people behind the counter seemed a bit flustered. There were other people in the queue which just weren't being very empathetic towards the staff who were there working to serve them. Essentially, I think one of the things which is always a good indicator of someone's nature is how do they treat people who are performing jobs of that kind. How do they treat customer service people? How do they treat waiters, waitresses? How do they treat people who work at hospitals, dental surgeries, the GPs? If you know someone who generally doesn't treat people in these environments that well, generally, I find that this type of behavior is often set in place quite early in life, and it can, I'm not going to cast any aspersions over anyone, right? But from my experience, that person hasn't heard the word no enough. They might be quite entitled. They might have lived a life where they're generally used to getting what they want, so they don't feel like they need to be outwardly altruistic and lead with manners in order to get what they're supposed to get out of a certain situation. They feel like they just deserve it because that's the way they've been treated. And again, that's not necessarily their fault, right? That might be to do with an older person who's looked after them, a parent, a loved one, a grandparent. Someone has kind of maybe formed this being towards being that way through what they thought was quite good care because they were, trying to do things for them which they thought would make them happy, and they never really said no. And then lo and behold, over years and years and years and years, that behavior kind of, it generally matures and becomes stronger over time. So if you haven't been taught to use your manners early in life, you're even worse at using them once you get older. And you're quite expectant about what you should receive, or the mode in which people should treat you based on your experiences, right? And generally, these things work both ways. So similarly, if you lead with positivity and manners, these things are often reinforced by people's response to you. And the way that I would describe it for myself, I've always led with manners. I think my mother, my father taught me very good practices in this area from a very early age. And what I realize, or what I notice most neatly about manners, and this is the important thing I want you to take hold of. If you are someone who has manners and maybe you don't always feel like you want to use them, this is something to know. And if you aren't someone who thinks they have particularly great manners, again, this is something that you should take note of as well. So manners give you access. Okay, manners give you more access to levels of service, sorry, areas, places, things that generally you might not get if you don't have manners. Okay, and I think that's quite stark when I see the differences. I have another example of this when I was traveling recently. And I've seen the reverse example happen. So I traveled recently from Malaga to London. Um, Unfortunately, because of the way the bookings were set up, no one who had booked a ticket for this flight could pick their seat. However, okay, when I got on the flight, I went straight up to the flight attendant. I said, "Look, I have a bad knee. I did have a bad knee, but I could easily have sat in any seat, right? But I wanted the extra legroom, so I've gone up to the air hostess. I said, "Look, I've got a bad knee. Is it possible that you guys have any and of course I met her with the the hello, the how are you first, the smile first. These are just the basics. These are very simple things that go very, very far if you just practice them every day with everyone. Don't reserve that for certain people. Give it to everyone. Okay, and you'll see how beneficial that is. So I smile, say hello, ask how they are, make eye contact, make sure you don't divert your eyes all over the place. And I do this when I'm looking at the cat. I try and make sure I look down the lens at you guys. And this person hopped too. And I don't know if they would have done it for someone else who didn't meet them with the manners. But again, I have a second story which kind of shows me that, again, the manners play a big part in this thing. So the flight attendant immediately goes to the iPad with the full layer of seats for everyone on the flight. She says, oh, there's this legroom seat right here. Moves the thing around. It's yours. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's 27A. Actually, I'll take you down there. Look at that. And actually, this seat was one of the seats that generally the flight attendants sit in for the flights. Obviously, they sit in the larger spaces and they sit across from each other. And I had one of those quite comfortable seats for the rest of the flight. And I was traveling with quite a few people. I would say upwards of 10 people. And obviously, there was a lot of conversation about why have you got this seat? Why did you get that? But the reality is, okay, you get what you put out there. Okay, you lead with gratitude, with empathy, with your best self, with your manners, as I've discussed, and generally it will pay you back. Okay, and again, you put it into practice, you see for yourself. If you do it already, great. If you don't, try it in an instance where you want something. Okay, that's not always the best place to start, but I think it's a good place to start. If you have a desire for something, try it first there. And again, this is always reinforced by people's response. So when you use those manners and they work, oh, well, okay, well, I'll just do that all the time. And again, it's best when you lead with that from a starting standpoint. And again, I think I'll go on to the next point here. So some people are very positively triggered by manners and will double their efforts simply because you are good and kind to them. Okay. And this for me, I mean, like I said, I do it because I want the other person to feel good about themselves. And generally speaking, what you'll find is when you have that altruistic nature about your manners, so you're using your manners to brighten up someone else's day, not to enhance your own, you are going to reap great benefits. Small ones, little things, freebies here and there, you get a lot of them. But when you're altruistic with your personality and your desire to improve other people's quality of life just by speaking in a certain way to them, which is small but has great value, especially like I said, when you're dealing with people who are in customer service spaces, um, you'll see the benefits. You'll see how much further that people will go for you if they feel like you're a good person, you're a kind-hearted person, you're good-natured, and it's authentic. It's not done simply because you want something, because that's kind of facetious. That's a bit fake as well. Okay, and we don't want to do that. We want to be authentic in the way that we approach this. We want to be truly altruistic in our nature so that people can feel the sincerity with which we are speaking to them and they are not having to second guess whether or not you are just trying to get one over on them. Because I think, again, people who work in these spaces, and that's a crude example, but it's the best one I have because this is what triggered this conversation. They're used to it. They know how certain people are, and other people are different. Some people will just use money, right? Some people will just say, well, I'll give you a little tip. And people like tips, right? If you work a certain service job, I know how expensive it is to live in London, and cash is king. It helps if you have a little extra and you're willing to share that with someone. You're willing to, make their job a bit more. You're willing to flatter them a little bit with money in order to get what you want. That's good, but your manners, your kindness, and your empathy, your altruism will go further, I think, than your coin will in life. And yeah, I think that's a very true statement. There's some things that you can't buy, and you certainly can't buy manners, right? Can't purchase those. So think of it in that way. Um, and I guess how I think continue or move this conversation on, and it goes back to the rewards of manners. Okay, I think many of us seek to attain a certain level of treatment in life. We look at people with certain statuses, and you kind of feel like, okay, well, if I want to get there, I need to have the trappings of that life. Maybe I need to be successful. I need to have money. I need to be someone of importance. I need to be this, that, and the other. But the reality is, you don't. And again, the flight analogy I just gave you is a great example of that because in some instances, and in that instance in particular, right, I'm not a celebrity, I'm no one, right, but I'm getting extra treatment, I'm getting the benefit of the exact seat I want on that plane, which no one else is getting, no one else was able to receive, simply because I lead with the manners. And I do that because I want to brighten up someone else's day. And again, you can almost be a celebrity. Your aura creates celebrity for you, almost a fake celebrity status, because you care deeply about everyone and you want to lead with your very best self. And that can almost make you feel like you're famous, because people then have a response to that. They recognize that, because not everyone does it, right? It's quite a unique thing. Most people in this world, I think, through our own fault, are kind of downtrodden through, our experiences, things we've been through, things we've seen. They can lower our frequency, our vibration, to the point where we aren't always leading with that higher self, that true self. Because I do believe everyone does have a care for each other, but the reality is we have so much going on in our own heads and our own minds that we forget to lead with that positivity and that glowing energy, because we're bogged down with our day to day. And I wasn't actually going to insert this phrase, but this is an important phrase which I wrote down a few months ago, and I think, again, will help you understand when and how to use your manners to their most effectiveness. Okay, even when your light is dim, you must try and shine it on others, because they may indeed be in need of someone to light the way. Okay, so even when your light is dim, you must try and shine it on others, because they may be in need of someone to light the way. And I think that speaks to my attempt at Uniqlo yesterday, because you're not always going to get the reception you want from the person. Sometimes they're just having too bad of a day to give you the energy you want back. And I never, want to make someone feel bad for it. And I can fully understand why someone, on any given day isn't in the mood for jovial, happy, smiley Elliot. It's perfectly fine, right? I can't expect them to always meet me where I'm at. Sometimes they just don't have the strength, the energy, the desire even to want to be like that. But I think we all have that side of us, that part of us in there, which I think is largely due to our empathetic nature, which is what makes us human, right? And we have to try and um give that to everyone. And the reality is, okay, um, the reality is that light you're sharing is not your own. The light you're sharing is the light the creator has put in you. Okay, he put it in all of us. That is the empathy. That is the understanding of the human experience, how difficult it is, how hard it is to go out every day and be yourself, that bright self. That is the light the creator's put in you. And again, it's important to share it. And when you see someone doesn't have access to theirs, it's even more important to try and give them some of yours, so that they can benefit from your aura, your glow, your sense of self that you want to deliver to them, with that authenticity and purity that is, like I said, within all of us. Um, and again, I think, yeah, I mean, there's other points here I've written down. I will share some of them. So the 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 manners, as we've discussed, must come from a place of altruism. Deliver your best self onto others purely for their benefit, and see how much more this creates for you and for them as well. But again, this is certainly a way for you to exist in the world that you want to be in, by creating it through the way that you speak to people, the way that you treat them, the way that you act towards them, the way that you behave around them. That is what is going to create your universe, your world. Okay, and nothing can really penetrate that once it's connected to the creator, who has given you that light. And these understandings are fundamental, and they sound sometimes a bit pseudo-scientific, a bit airy-fairy, a bit witch doctory perhaps, but the reality is these are tried and tested methods. Okay, I would not tell you anything or tell you to do anything that I hadn't already tested in the field myself. Okay, I know these things work, and I know there's other people who are on the other side of this camera watching this right now who can definitely attest to this. But for you, if you're that person, the reminder is to always do it. Do it all the time. Always lead with that. Um okay, so there's a strong part of the conversation here, as I said, which is to do with how we end up not using that self. Um and I think there's an element of all humans that becomes distrustful through trauma. So when we have bad experiences, they minimize or reduce or subtract some of our faith in humanity. Okay, Elliot is here to restore some of that, and I hope you are too. But that is the equation that I think we must get around. And I've said that phrase quite a lot because a lot of this is adding and subtracting, dividing, and just creating, like I said, an equation which for yourself makes things whole. Okay. So we go through traumatic experiences. We meet people who don't treat us very well. We meet people who treat others badly. We meet people who perhaps are sociopathic, narcissistic in some of their tendencies. And that again makes you reinforce your guard. Okay. And that means that you aren't going to let people in. You aren't going to show your best self. You're going to actually reduce your openness and freeness in communication simply because you do not want anyone to take it for granted or to take advantage of you. Perfectly understandable. This is how animals survive in the animal kingdom. They kind of listen. The goat can't trust the lion because the goat has witnessed what the lion will do if he can get his hands on him, right? And there are some, I guess the wolf is the better analogy. There are some wolves in sheep's clothing who do present themselves to be good, and then once they get their teeth into you, you find out that they're not so good. And to prevent that from happening again, you then fortify your exterior. Okay, you remove your smile, you become very serious so that people cannot take advantage of you. And again, there is a need for that. There is certainly a need to have an exterior which cannot be easily penetrated by anyone, and you need to be wary of who is good and who is bad, right? But at the same time, do not allow that to completely ruin some of or take away some of your blessings and benefits that are waiting there for you if you can lead with your altruistic, empathetic, higher self who has exquisite manners. Okay, this is still very important to do. And again, it's perhaps due to your trauma and desire for safety and bad experiences, which is going to make you like this, and close your spirit. The best way through that is to reopen. Okay, to reopen the spirit. Try to make that flower bud again, so that you can, reestablish your altruism. Because you have that. You had it from birth. Somewhere along the line, someone did something to you and it took it away. But you need to find that again. You need to find that budding flower, which is going to allow you to flourish. You can flourish by helping others flourish. And that's kind of what we're discussing today. And this the easiest way to do that is with your manners, because your manners are how you directly interface with every other computer. This is your computer up here. This is how, and this is the machine it sits inside of. The best way to communicate machine to machine, brain to brain, is through manners, through good personal habits and traits, through in communication that let people know that you are not there to hurt them. You're there to be a light, a beacon, much like they probably are as well. So we don't want to close that spirit. What we want to do is give others the treatment you should have got from that person who wronged you. And when you can open the flower again and give others the treatment you should have got, watch how the season changes and you begin to blossom again. Okay. And what we're trying to be here is the exception to the trauma, not the rule of the trauma. And we cannot let the trauma rule us long term, right? We have to be able to get around it. It's not going to be easy to do. I certainly am not completely over some of the things that I've been through. Certainly not. And every day I try and, do my best to work around them. And at the same time, I am doing my best to understand them. How did I end up in these scenarios? It does take a lot of deep thought and introspection that's going to allow you to understand, okay, right, that's why this person was able to do this thing to me, because I'm this way. And I don't actually have to close off my entire self. I just have to understand that this aspect of myself, they cannot have easy access to. I need to be fortified in this area. However, externally, when I meet people, I can still be good, happy, fun, enjoyable, and great to be around, okay? I think that's as much as I want to say today. Again, I'm going to try and make some of these a bit shorter so that they can be easily digested. I hope that you will listen to this and you'll decide to go out and have a good interaction with someone today before the day closes. I'm going to try and get this out hopefully after my gym session, so maybe around 6:30. And if you are still here, obviously, as I always say, you don't have to comment, like, share, or subscribe. But maybe if you know someone without the best manners, drop them a link to this. Maybe they will benefit from it. Hopefully they won't take it personally. Hopefully they'll look at it and say, okay, he's this person's trying to tell me something. Let me listen to what they're saying. and take it on board. Thank you for listening. That was episode 8, Manners and Altruism. I will see you guys in episode 9. Hope you're having a great day.